and I go along with that.
Thank you. And next question is for Ms. Butt first. Local education officials are afraid that lawmakers will reduce state education funding. Will you pledge to maintain existing levels of funding for education? Why or why not?
Let me say that at this moment, I would, and I say that carefully, I would say yes, that I would maintain those levels. Now, in talking about that, education is one of the most important things to me, to my family. I majored in education. I was an English teacher. I understand what we're talking about in education, and the funding has to be there for what we need. Now, I do have a graph in front of me that shows that Maury County is highest in spending, on the top of the graph in spending in the state of Tennessee, and lowest in the graph for what we get for our money. You know, if we build beautiful schools with the greatest technology, and kids in there are making 17s on their ACT, and we have a one-room schoolhouse right next door that's educating children from 12 to 18 years old, but they're coming out of that one-room school with 25s on their ACT. Let me ask you where you're going to send your children to school. And I will do everything to help teachers in the classroom. My question is there a lot of spending that might be cut at another level in education?
Thank you. Repeat.
Go ahead.
Local education officials are afraid that lawmakers will reduce state education funding. Will you pledge to maintain existing levels of funding for education?
I will maintain existing levels of funding for education, but this is an important question because it goes back to my time on the county commission and serving on the budget committee. One of the things we've learned, and it's going on right now this week, is that the setup that was passed in 1994 by Governor Ned McWhorter, where you had an appointed school board superintendent and an elected county commission, elected school board body that works with the county commission. The last budget year I saw where over half of the school budgets had not been passed on time. Both bodies are doing what they're supposed to do to try and get as much funding as they can, while the county commissioner is trying to make sure we maintain a good tax rate so it doesn't put burden in your pockets. The school board's trying to do all they can to move education forward and get the proper funding to make all those programs happen. But the setup, in my opinion, is not working. When you have half of the school budgets across the state that can't pass a budget on time, it tells you there's a problem in the system. Something I want to work on over the next 2 to 4 years is coming up with a better system. Maybe the state needs to take over and say, here's how we help make y'all work together, get along, and provide a good budget. And that's a challenge that we have. But I think we all know when we see the school board and the county commission arguing, that's not what we want. But we want to make sure that our young people have good role models and they see that we're doing all we can to fully fund their education in their schools.
Thank you.
Yes, and we do want to make sure that the people and the needs are fully funded. I sat in the commission meeting the other night and watched this go between the commissioners and the school board. And it is something that the commissioners have to look at seriously, because there will be more money coming into our school system from the federal government. And until that money comes, they don't know what the school board is going to have. So there may be a better way of doing this. At the moment, they have to work together and pass this budget. And once you pass a higher budget, then you have to maintain that budget from the time to come. So I think they're all trying to look at this realistically with the tax money that we have and make it best for our teachers and for our students.
Again, I want to say that the process, both bodies are doing a good job, including the state government. Remember that we have to maintain a maintenance of effort. When they pass a budget, say it's $75 million, the next year they can't come back and cut to $70 million. County governments have to maintain that maintenance of effort. But again, we've got to improve the process where the school board and the county commission can work together for what's best for the students here in Tennessee.
But once it's passed, you can't go back.
Thank you. Okay, we're moving right along here, folks. The next question, Mr. Cobb first. There are concerns that state lottery revenues may not be sufficient to continue covering the cost of scholarships provided by the program. How specifically would you adjust this program to make it sustainable?
Well, this has been something that's been discussed in the legislature. I know the past 2 years I've been in there, and one of the things I want to see as many people, young people go to college as possible. But when you lower the GPA to, let's say, 2.7 from 3.0, that means more people dip into the funds, correct? So it leaves less and less money there in a lottery reserves. I mean, you can, in a down economy, I'm sure, I don't think people are buying as many lottery tickets, but we have a certain fund there that we dip in to pay for those scholarships. But I think first and foremost, we should not use the lottery money, it was intended by Governor Bredesen to be strictly for scholarships. We do not need to use the lottery money to build schools or throw it at energy savings somewhere else. It needs to be strictly for young people and all those aspiring to go to college to be able to get it if they do what they're supposed to do. But here's something else that needs to happen. When the state of Tennessee issues our young people that lottery check, we're taking an investment on their life. It's just like when you borrow a loan for a car, the bank's going to get their money. Well, if a young man or young woman goes to school and they decide, I don't want to do it, I don't think that's good enough. I think the state of Tennessee needs to say, well, you're going to pay us that loan back because we've taken an investment on your future and we're asking you to continue to get through that semester and get that A or B. So I think the legislature needs to come back and say, hey, when we give you this money, we expect you to maintain and pass those classes, and if you don't, you're going to hand that money back.
Sure.
One thing I might not agree on, in a down economy, a lot of times I think more people play the lottery in a down economy, thinking this may be good for me. I may have a chance at this. But I say that I have seen these funds work in the lives not only of young people, but married people who have gone back to school to better their education. And this investment in these young people and these families is wonderful. We do need to maintain that 3.0 average because there has been a lot of fraudulent use of those funds where young people go to school or they go to Columbia State, and they take the funds for the first time and then they go to a couple of classes and they've gotten that money for the next 3 to 4 months. So we need to make sure that fraudulent spending is cut out by making the students have certain grades and certain qualifications for those lottery scholarships.
Thank you.
Well, just like when my parents approved me to get a new car, I had to get a job and go to work and pay for that car. And that's the same way I look at it for the state of Tennessee. When we give you that lottery scholarship to go to school, we expect you to succeed and do your part as we take investment on your future. And that's what I want to look at the next 2 years, is how we make sure that our students and our young people are held accountable.
Sheila,
I would just like to say that's also an investment in our state and in our future job training. I read an article just yesterday that says it is coming out in a new study that Maury County has been a part of, that the people who will have the best chance at a job in the next few years will be college graduates. They will have a much better chance for the jobs that are coming down to our economy now. So we want to make sure that those funds are available for those students who are willing to go to school and prepare themselves